So, unless you've been living under a rock and you never did anything with your life, it's safe to say that you have skills. Most people do. And not skills that they are very like theoretical. You have real life skills. And you probably learned those skills from past jobs you had. Repetition, pressure, proximity to real systems, being inside the job market, different industries, from dealing with people, from being inside environments or implementations you had to execute. So, especially if you work at sales, customer service jobs, just that you have to involve a lot of conversations with people, problem solving, or any type of role that it involves two people not understanding each other and having to solve problems, you absorb a lot by just being there. And not talking if you have like very specialized skills that you learn from like being inside of a very difficult industry. Most average people, they don't realize this, but they have built communication skills, handling customers, co-workers, managers, sales psychology, persuasion, objections, handling, tone control, process thinking, how things move, break, or get fixed, emotional regulation, dealing with stress, conflict, deadlines, industry specific pattern recognition, what works, what doesn't work. So, especially if you work multiple jobs, if you've been like job hopping for a lot of years and you've been like, having or working in a lot of different industries, these skills they compound very fast. You start noticing patterns across industries and markets, and that knowledge stocks whether people realize it or not. So as you see, most people do have skills. The problem is not that people lack these skills, it's that they develop these skills inside of institutions. So you end up with this mindset that if you do not uh, live, or if you're not are inside of an institution, you cannot develop the specific skill you have. So you know how to make things work, fix problems, deal with people, or perform a specialized skill. But the moment that you step outside of a system, outside of an institution, you feel that that skill totally disappears. It's like your competence can only exist if you have like a job title assigned to it. Modern work accidentally turns people into multi-skilled operators, but the system trains them to think those skills only exist inside of a job title. So people associate their value, their personal value, their skill value to the institution that they were in, not themselves. Because think about it, every single time that you work inside of a job, you were just performing a specific task. The company that you were working in, they handle the monetization side of your work. So I know that you don't realize this, but over time, it trains yourself, it trains your mind just to be inside of a specific mental state. You don't think of yourself as someone who produces value. You think of yourself as someone who occupies a role where value happens around you. That's just my job. I'm not an expert. So I'm sure that you notice that when you talk to new people and you ask what they do and what people describe their background, they collapse everything in just a job title. I work in sales. I work in corporate. I was in operations. I'm a customer service representative. That single label that you're describing over there has like 10 to 15 different capabilities. Once you start looking at your background that way, it changes how you describe yourself or how you attach yourself to what you know and to the work that you have done before. And you start to think yourself of building something outside of an institution. So every single time that you say a job title or something that you've done before, like a different job, it comprises all of the following: communication, persuasion, pattern recognition, emotional regulation, explaining complexity, diagnosing problems. So it's amazing that the job title that you attribute to yourself has nothing to do with you, right? So the systems that we're living comprise those skills that you have as assets that they own. So most people don't realize the skills that they have because they think of themselves as labor units. So when they think about making money independently with skills they already have, they assume something must be missing. But most of the time, there's only one thing missing: the knowledge to monetize your skill. So when people talk about building a one-person business model with skills that they already have, they kind of like block themselves. They cannot really fathom that they can just make money with the knowledge they already have by being a productive member of society. And they think that everything is completely missing, that they cannot make it happen. Most of the time, you have one side of the equation, but you need the other side of the equation, which is monetizing that skill. Which most of the time, if we start thinking about it and you start talking to people, they do have the skills that there's a market for it, that people are willing to pay for it. What they have to learn is just to all the structure and all the game that they have to do to monetize that specific skill. As long as your abilities stay embedded inside of your head, it might as well not exist economically. So you are capable, all right? You are capable of just being able to solve a specific problem for someone or selling a specific service and get paid for it. You just need to learn the other side of the equation, which is monetizing that skill. And monetization in and of itself is a separate skill. You have the production skills, you need the extraction skills. Monetization sits outside of everything that you already know. Monetization is packaging, positioning, distribution, pricing, or more simply, you have a skill, you put it into a package outcome, you learn how to distribute it, and that's how you get paid. So a lot of the learning that you have to internalize when it comes to monetizing your skill comes just to simply one word: visibility. People need to know that you exist, that your products exist. Now, you need to get this into your head. It doesn't mean visibility to everyone. It only means visibility to the specific avatar of people that are more likely just to pay for the service that you have to offer. You don't need to be visible to the internet as a whole. You need to be visible to the people who already have the problem you solve. Yes, face visibility is becoming the dominant path. A landing page plus social media content plus YouTube is increasingly the default infrastructure for a one-person business. AI is accelerating this because when execution gets cheap, trust becomes the scarce asset. And trust is easier to build when you have a human face attached to a brand. Because let me tell you something, and we are already in the face of this. The internet is about to get flooded with generic content. The internet is about to get flooded with just cheap, like quick, easy AI generated content that everyone just can create with a prompt. What I'm trying to say here is that showing your face is going to become more and more, how can I say this, of a requirement just for someone just to see a human brand outside of a product or service that is being offered on the internet. So yes, you probably don't like hearing this, but showing your face is going to be more and more of a requirement as time goes on when it comes to be able to build a brand. It's going to be one of the few ways that you're going to have to differentiate yourself in the whole like internet ecosystem when it gets flooded with generic content. In a world with AI can generate output instantly, people don't pay for output or information alone anymore. They pay for judgment, taste, and decision making. So yes, I know this is hard to hear because a lot of people just don't want to show their face. They don't want to put themselves out there. It's just they want to see if they can make money without having to show themselves. And that was me for a very long time. That's what YouTube matters more than any other platform. So you don't need to be scattered all over the place. Most YouTubers and most people who are growing a one-person business model, they're mainly focusing on one or two, at the most three different social media platforms. For example, myself, I'm focusing on YouTube and on X. Try to put content on TikTok as well. I know I'm lacking on that a little bit, but I need to get myself on track with that. But yes, you don't need to be scattered all over the place. My main advice to you is that you focus on YouTube primarily and another social media platform secondarily, and that's it. Maybe you want to add a third one, but that's up to you. But yeah, the good thing about YouTube is it's long form. It shows you thinking. It shows your divine sovereign soul on the internet. It's easier for people just to connect with you, to get to like you, to get to know you, and it's very easy to show the uniqueness of yourself and what you have to offer. And in an AI saturated environment, that is very hard to fake. It's going to be just a few years until it becomes pretty much indistinguishable when you see a human talking head, just like myself, a real human talking to the camera, and that you cannot distinguish it from an AI avatar. Most people can still tell, and most people will be able to tell in a few years. We'll see what happens, and we'll see if it still makes sense for you to make talking head videos or to show you real stuff on camera once that becomes indistinguishable, but you still have a few years for that to happen. Now, I gotta say a hard truth when it comes to this. This indeed disqualifies a lot of people, and that is good for you if you jump yourself into it. And it disqualifies a lot of people, not because they're stupid, well, a lot of them are, but not because they lack skills, because as we covered before, people do have skills. But you know why it disqualifies a lot of people? Because most people are unwilling to do this. Most people are unwilling to put themselves out there, unwilling to record themselves, unwilling to create a YouTube channel, unwilling to step outside of their comfort zone. Most people simply just don't want to. They prefer to stay where they are. They prefer just to do work behind the scenes. And that is becoming increasingly hard to be behind the scenes. And people may think that that is comfort, but that is actually, more and more instability. Because as time goes on, it's going to become harder and harder for you to, make money either online or offline if you do not create something around yourself. So yes, unfortunately, you have to take responsibility or put it yourself and put it your ideas in public. Most people would rather stay hidden inside institutions, even declining fragile ones, than attach their name and face to a point of view. So yes, the modern stack is increasingly non-negotiable. A clear offer, a simple landing page, social proof, long form content where people can see you think. But you want to know the good thing about this is that most people do not need a massive channel. They don't. You can start monetizing very well a YouTube channel with 1,000 subscribers. And I'm not talking about monetizing with YouTube ads. That is just a bonus. I'm talking about monetizing it with the products or services that you will be offering there. You'll be surprised of how many YouTubers are making more money with a channel that has 5,000 subscribers, but they're offering a lot of products and services, and they're building a whole business around that channel, that a channel with 100,000 subscribers only for pure entertainment. You only need a small, honest, human channel that shows who you are, how you think, what you can solve, and how you work. And while we talk about this, I made a whole PDF showing how I work, all the tools that I use. Make sure that you get it. The link is in the description. Now, we talked before that not everyone is adapting to this. And that is good for you if you will adapt to it, because the good thing about growing a YouTube channel is that most of the YouTubers or most people who start a channel, they quit after their video 10 or so. And most people who start a one-person business model, they have very bad expectations of how this works, so they quit as well, because it's not for everyone, even if it's becoming economically optimal. Some people would rather trade long-term autonomy for short-term psychological comfort, and that's totally fine. If you need a job to sustain yourself, that's perfectly fine. You do what you got to do. Having a job right now in 2026 and moving forward, you should consider yourself lucky, consider all the layoffs and all the mass unemployment that we're seeing. Now, having said that, you need to start looking into ways to monetizing your skills that you may have or you may not realize that you have, because you cannot keep dependent on institutions that are totally collapsing. And if you don't create your own sovereign system, you're going to have a very hard time coming 2027, 2028, 2029, because all those years, they're all going to be about collapse. Institutions will not always be there to convert your effort into survival. This is not a temporary disruption. It's a structural shift. Institutions are becoming thinner, more automated, more extractive, and less loyal. They're not longer designed to carry people. They're, designing and kind of evolving and just to optimizing themselves the best they can, and they don't care about just having people inside anymore. So if you don't build something, you are becoming dependent on an institutions that they have no, how can I say this, incentive to protect you at all. This is why monetizing your skills isn't a side hustle conversation anymore. It's a sovereignty conversation. So the future belongs to those who act early, build quietly, and accept responsibilities fully. It's becoming necessary now more than ever, especially considering how much turbulence we're seeing right now in the world. So this is the world we live in. This is where we are moving as a society. This is where we're moving when it comes to business and making a living. More and more people are just pushed into making something happen for themselves. The next few years are going to be pretty insane. Hopefully you can make something happen for you this year. So yes, like, comment, subscribe. If you want to check the last video that I did about the one-person business model, providing a lot of information about how it works, and that it's becoming totally inevitable that most people will end up being forced to do it one way or another, go check this video, and I'll see you at the next one.